What would you do if you suddenly lost all your strength and vitality? That was the question Elon Musk found himself asking, not in some grand speech or in a corporate meeting, but deep in thought, alone, in his office at SpaceX. To the outside world, Musk was the epitome of success. He had revolutionized electric cars with Tesla, made Mars a goal with SpaceX, and even dreamed of transforming the way humanity interacted with the world through neural technology. Yet, no matter how much he had accomplished, there was one thing he couldn't escape: the inevitable signs of aging. At the age of 50, Musk was beginning to feel the physical toll that years of relentless work and high stress had taken on his body. His energy levels, once boundless, were starting to dip. His muscles, which had been the foundation of his youthful vigor, no longer responded as they used to. It was a humbling experience for someone who had once felt like he could conquer anything, both in business and in life. For most people, getting older comes with a sense of inevitability. The slow, creeping feeling that your body is no longer the machine it once was. But for someone like Musk, who had always prided himself on pushing the limits of what was possible, aging felt like a challenge he couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about vanity, it was about health, vitality, and the ability to keep up with his demanding lifestyle. As a founder and CEO of multiple groundbreaking companies, Musk needed his body to perform as well as his mind. For a while, he did what most people do: he tried to manage it. He adjusted his diet, hit the gym when he could, and even looked into supplements that promised to fight the effects of aging. But nothing seemed to give him the results he was hoping for. His muscles still felt weak, his energy low, and the fatigue continued to weigh on him. Musk, however, is not a man who gives up easily. He wanted to solve this problem. Not just for himself, but for everyone else who might be facing the same challenges. What if there was a simple solution that didn't involve pills, workouts that felt like torture, or expensive treatments? That's when Musk stumbled upon something that would change everything. It wasn't some high-tech gadget or a new fitness trend, it was food. Yes, food. 3 specific foods, to be precise, that Musk believed could be the key to maintaining muscle health, strength, and vitality after 50. It might sound simple, but Musk, ever the perfectionist, wasn't just going to accept this at face value. He was going to test it, research it, and prove it. The story of how Elon Musk found these 3 game-changing foods started innocently enough. A chance encounter with a group of nutritionists who were discussing muscle health sparked his curiosity. He had always been interested in the science of human performance, but this was something new. The conversation centered around a well-known fact that Musk had heard before: muscle mass naturally declines with age, especially after 50. But what really caught his attention was a specific mention of 3 foods that had the power to counteract this decline. According to the nutritionists, these foods weren't just great for maintaining muscle health, they could actively help rebuild it. Intrigued, Musk did what he always did best: he dove deep into research. What followed was a whirlwind of reading scientific studies, consulting with experts, and testing different theories. He learned that as we age, the body's ability to synthesize protein, which is essential for muscle growth and repair, begins to slow down. This leads to the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength, making everyday tasks harder and more exhausting. But what if there was a way to stop, or even reverse, this process? Could food really be the secret? The 3 foods that Musk discovered were not some rare, exotic superfoods. They were simple, accessible, and, in some cases, foods that most people already ate. But the key was how these foods interacted with the body, particularly after 50. They were rich in nutrients that played a critical role in muscle regeneration and maintenance, nutrients that, if consumed consistently, could help people over 50 maintain their strength, energy, and vitality. The first of these foods was salmon, a powerhouse of omega-3 fatty acids, which have been shown to reduce inflammation and improve muscle protein synthesis. The second was eggs, a complete source of protein that contains all the essential amino acids needed to rebuild and maintain muscle tissue. The third was spinach, a vegetable that, despite being relatively low in calories, was packed with magnesium and other minerals that are crucial for muscle function. At first glance, these foods might seem like nothing more than healthy staples in a typical diet. But Musk began to see something beyond their basic nutritional benefits. He began to recognize that, combined, these foods had the potential to change the way people over 50 thought about aging and muscle health. They weren't just fighting the effects of aging, they were actively restoring what had been lost. But could it really work? Musk wasn't one to take anything at face value. He knew that the best way to prove this theory was to test it himself. So, he set out on a journey that would take him from one of the busiest men on the planet to someone who had to carve out time in his demanding schedule just to eat meals that included salmon, eggs, and spinach. He even went so far as to track his progress, documenting his energy levels, strength, and overall well-being along the way. But this wasn't just about Musk's journey, it was about something much bigger. This was a story about aging, about health, and about how a few simple changes could make all the difference. Musk had spent his life working to push the boundaries of human potential in business and technology. Now, he was trying to do the same for human health, particularly when it came to aging. The question remained, could these three foods really make a difference for someone over 50? Could they help people maintain strength, vitality, and energy well into their later years? And, if it worked for Musk, someone who had everything to lose, what could it do for you? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? As Musk would soon find out, the answers were waiting to be discovered, and they might just change the way you think about aging forever. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk's name is synonymous with innovation and futuristic thinking. His ventures span from electric cars and space travel to artificial intelligence and even human brain-computer interfaces. But behind the headlines, the social media posts, and the groundbreaking technologies, there's a man who, despite his genius, struggles with the same universal challenges that all of us do: aging, physical decline, and maintaining personal health in the face of a hectic life. Born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, Musk's childhood was far from ordinary. A self-proclaimed bookworm, he was fascinated with technology and science from a young age. At 12, he taught himself computer programming and created a video game called Blaster, which he sold for $500. His mind worked in ways that most people couldn't even begin to fathom, and that drive only intensified as he grew older. But even as he set out to change the world, Musk knew that he couldn't escape the inevitable march of time. His rise to fame began when he moved to the United States to attend the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in both economics and physics. After dropping out of Stanford's PhD program just 2 days into his studies, Musk dove headfirst into the world of business, founding Zip2 and X.com, which later became PayPal. These early ventures set the stage for Musk's incredible career, and he went on to create Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and The Boring Company. But for all his success, there was something Musk could never quite control: his health. Like many ambitious entrepreneurs, Musk lived an intense, all-consuming life. He was known for his grueling 100-hour work weeks, his obsession with perfection, and his tendency to sacrifice personal well-being in the pursuit of his dreams. In the early days of Tesla and SpaceX, Musk barely had time for sleep, let alone exercise. The stress of keeping his companies afloat took a toll on his physical health, and by the time he reached his 50s, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Musk's relationship with his body was complicated. On one hand, he had always been active. He enjoyed sports as a child and continued to stay active during his adult life, often engaging in physical activities like hiking, skiing, and playing video games, which, in Musk's case, was not just a hobby but a way to fuel his mind. But his lifestyle, filled with late nights, high-pressure meetings, and endless travel, was taking a toll on his physical health. He had started to notice subtle signs of aging. His muscles felt weaker, he was fatigued more easily, and his energy was no longer as boundless as it had been. It wasn't just about the physical changes. Musk's mental health had been impacted as well. As his body started to slow down, his mind began to feel the strain of maintaining such a high level of performance. Stress and anxiety became constant companions, and he knew something needed to change. He began researching ways to slow down the aging process, particularly focusing on maintaining his physical strength and stamina. But, for someone as dedicated to scientific progress as Musk, conventional solutions didn't seem to be enough. That's when he turned to one of his most trusted principles: innovation. Musk didn't see problems as obstacles, he saw them as opportunities to find solutions that hadn't been discovered yet. If technology could help humanity travel to Mars, if it could revolutionize the way we used electricity, then surely there must be a way to hack the human body and extend the period of peak performance, especially when it came to muscle health. Musk knew that maintaining muscle mass and strength was crucial for overall health, particularly as we age. Muscle loss wasn't just about looking good, it was about living well. Losing muscle mass, a process known as sarcopenia, could lead to a number of debilitating issues, such as frailty, balance problems, and an increased risk of falls and fractures. It could affect metabolism, making it harder to maintain a healthy weight, and impact energy levels, leading to fatigue and weakness. The more he learned about the consequences of muscle loss, the more determined he became to find a solution. But Musk's curiosity was more than just a personal quest for better health. He saw an opportunity to help others, especially those over 50, who were grappling with the same challenges. After all, Musk had always been about the bigger picture. Whether it was advancing humanity's future with electric vehicles or making life multiplanetary with SpaceX, Musk was always thinking on a global scale. If he could find a way to help people combat muscle decline and regain their strength, he could make a real difference in the lives of millions of people. But how could Musk, a man who had achieved so much in the realm of technology, possibly find a solution in something as simple as food? For most, this might have seemed like an unlikely answer. After all, we live in a world obsessed with the latest fitness trends, supplements, and cutting-edge technologies designed to slow the aging process. But Musk wasn't looking for shortcuts or quick fixes. He was looking for something sustainable, something that worked with the body rather than against it. Musk's personal struggle with aging is one that many of us can relate to. As we get older, it becomes harder to maintain the same energy levels, muscle mass, and physical endurance we once had. For Musk, this was more than just a personal battle, it was a problem that had the potential to affect millions of people around the world. The science behind muscle health and aging wasn't something new, but it was something Musk had to understand deeply before he could find the right answer. And so, with his usual dedication to the truth and his unyielding drive to innovate, Musk embarked on a journey to discover the foods that could help him, and everyone else over 50, regain their strength, vitality, and health. In the next chapters, we will explore how Musk uncovered the surprising truth behind 3 simple foods that could change the way we think about muscle health and aging. And, more importantly, we'll follow him as he takes the leap to test these foods not just on himself, but on the people who need them most. Stay tuned to discover what these foods are, and how they might just change everything. Elon Musk had always been a man who prided himself on resilience. From the early days of Tesla and SpaceX, where the odds seemed impossible, to the moments when critics doubted his ability to reach Mars, Musk had always found a way to push forward. But there was one challenge that even he couldn't solve with a new technology, an investment, or an ambitious business plan: the undeniable process of aging. As Musk neared 50, his body was showing signs of wear. It wasn't just the long hours of work, the relentless travel schedule, or the stress of managing multiple companies that took a toll on him. It was the reality that no one, not even the most innovative minds, could escape the consequences of getting older. And for someone as driven as Musk, the idea of slowing down or accepting physical limitations was a foreign concept. His body had begun to betray him. Simple tasks that he used to take for granted, climbing stairs, lifting a heavy object, or even just staying awake and focused for long hours, became increasingly difficult. The strength that had once fueled his unstoppable ambition felt like it was slipping away. Musk didn't have the luxury of time to rest or recover. He had companies to lead, employees to inspire, and a future to build. But it wasn't just about his own physical health. Musk's inability to overcome his fatigue and muscle weakness was beginning to affect his work. Long meetings would leave him exhausted, and the pressure of overseeing multiple projects at once was taking a toll on his mental clarity. His focus began to falter, and he noticed how even a few minutes of physical exertion left him winded and sore. He wasn't the man he once was, and that was a problem. The conflict deepened as Musk tried everything he could think of to turn things around. He sought the advice of nutritionists and fitness experts. He tried all sorts of diets, from low-carb to high-protein, and even experimented with fasting and intermittent fasting. But despite his best efforts, he wasn't seeing the results he expected. His muscles still felt weak, his energy was inconsistent, and the fatigue never fully disappeared. He started to wonder if there was an inevitable truth: maybe his age had simply caught up with him. Maybe there was no way to reverse the damage. But that thought was anathema to Musk. He had spent his entire life finding solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable. And if technology could take humanity to Mars, surely there had to be a way to solve this. It was during this period of frustration, when Musk felt he had hit a wall, that he stumbled across a piece of information that caught his attention. It was a scientific paper on muscle health in older adults. The study outlined how the body's ability to maintain and build muscle mass slowed down with age, and how that contributed to the physical decline that many people experienced as they entered their 50s and beyond. But there was one part of the study that grabbed Musk's attention. It suggested that while muscle loss was inevitable, certain foods had the ability to combat the process, foods that were rich in specific nutrients that supported muscle health and regeneration. The paper didn't promise a miracle cure, but it offered something that Musk had been desperately searching for: hope. Hope that, with the right dietary changes, there might be a way to slow, stop, or even reverse some of the effects of aging on the muscles. At first, Musk was skeptical. After all, he had already tried supplements and fancy diets to no avail. But this time, it wasn't about some exotic pill or a workout routine. It was something more fundamental, something that could be added to his everyday life: food. As he delved deeper into the research, he found that the food he consumed could have a far more profound impact on his body than he had ever imagined. The trick was knowing which foods to focus on, foods that were not just nutrient-dense, but that specifically targeted the muscle-building process. There was no magic solution, no single food that could instantly restore his lost strength. But, if these foods were part of a daily routine, they could help rebuild what had been lost over time. This discovery came at a critical moment. Musk had reached a tipping point in his personal battle with aging. He was tired of struggling with weak muscles and low energy. The frustration of not being able to perform at his best, both physically and mentally, was beginning to affect his productivity and his relationships. If he didn't take action now, he feared he would not be able to continue the work that had become his life's purpose. That's when Musk decided to take the leap. He wasn't just going to talk about it, he was going to put this theory to the test. Musk knew that there was no quick fix when it came to something as complex as muscle health. It would take time, patience, and commitment. But he was willing to give it everything he had. His work ethic had always been all-consuming, and now, he was going to apply that same relentless drive to something even more personal: his own health. With a plan in mind, Musk began incorporating 3 specific foods into his daily diet: salmon, eggs, and spinach. It wasn't a radical diet overhaul, it was a simple, sustainable change. But each of these foods had the potential to make a real difference. The salmon, packed with omega-3 fatty acids, was known for its anti-inflammatory properties and its ability to aid in muscle protein synthesis. The eggs, rich in protein and amino acids, were crucial for rebuilding and repairing muscle tissue. And the spinach, a source of magnesium and other essential minerals, would support muscle function and reduce muscle cramps. Musk wasn't naive. He knew that eating these foods alone wouldn't transform his health overnight. It was going to take time to see any real results. But this was a start, a new chapter in his journey to maintain his strength and vitality well into his 50s and beyond. And so, with determination and a sense of urgency, Musk began his experiment. He would track his progress, measure his energy levels, and document how his body responded. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about anyone who was facing the same struggles. If this worked for him, maybe it could work for others. He couldn't wait to find out. Little did Musk know, this was just the beginning of a much larger transformation, one that would not only change his life but could potentially change the way the world thought about aging and muscle health. The decision had been made. Elon Musk would embark on a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about health and aging. He was no stranger to the concept of pushing boundaries, whether it was launching a rocket into space or creating a car that could drive itself. But this was different. This wasn't about technology or machines, this was about his own body, the very vessel that had carried him through decades of sleepless nights, marathon workdays, and endless challenges. As Musk began incorporating the three foods, salmon, eggs, and spinach, into his daily diet, he approached it with the same methodical precision that had defined his career. It wasn't just a casual experiment, it was a test. He tracked every meal, every nutrient, and every feeling of fatigue or energy. There would be no shortcuts. He was determined to see if these foods could truly make a difference in how he felt, how strong he was, and how much energy he could summon in a day. In the early stages, nothing remarkable happened. Musk didn't expect overnight miracles, but he was impatient. He knew how quickly things could spiral when he didn't see immediate results. He wasn't just waiting for his muscles to rebuild, he was waiting for the breakthrough moment that would tell him that all of this simple dietary shift, was going to pay off. He continued with his work, still managing his companies with the same relentless energy, but he couldn't help but feel an undercurrent of frustration. Was this really going to work, or was it just another health trend that promised more than it could deliver? The first tangible change came after a few weeks. It wasn't huge, but it was noticeable. Musk began to feel more energized in the mornings. The usual grogginess that greeted him after a long night's sleep was starting to dissipate. He found that he didn't need as much coffee to get through his morning meetings. His focus felt sharper, and while he still had his moments of fatigue, they didn't linger as long. He was able to power through the long hours with greater ease. It was a subtle shift, but it was enough to make him pay closer attention. A few more weeks passed, and Musk began noticing something else. His muscles weren't as sore after workouts or even after long days of sitting in meetings. He could lift heavier weights at the gym, and his recovery time after physical activity seemed to improve. His arms, once starting to feel weak and stiff, were becoming more defined and stronger. The fatigue he had grown accustomed to, the kind that weighed down on him, making even simple tasks feel like monumental efforts, started to lift. Musk felt different. Not just in his energy levels, but in his body, in the way his muscles responded to exertion. But there was more to this journey than just physical strength. Musk's mental clarity was sharpening. He was having clearer thoughts during brainstorming sessions and problem-solving marathons. His teams noticed the difference too. They saw a more present, more focused Musk. His ideas, once scattered with moments of exhaustion, were now more cohesive and fluid. The confidence that had waned in the face of his physical decline started to return. He wasn't just getting his strength back, he was getting his edge back. And yet, Musk knew that this wasn't the end of the journey. These initial improvements were promising, but there was still the bigger question hanging over him: could these foods continue to have the same impact over the long term? Could this be the solution to aging that he was looking for, or was this just another temporary fix? This question gnawed at him, and he decided to take the next step in his experiment. He was going to go beyond just diet and track his progress over a longer period, combining it with his rigorous daily routine. He would test himself both physically and mentally, pushing his body to the limit to see how much of the improvement was sustained. And more importantly, he would share his findings with his team and eventually with the world. If this worked for him, it could work for others. It could be the breakthrough that people over 50 had been waiting for. Musk had always believed in the power of data, of facts, and of proof. And now, as he stood on the brink of this new journey, he was more determined than ever to gather the evidence that would either confirm or debunk his experiment. He would track everything meticulously: how he felt before and after meals, how his muscles responded to stress, how his energy fluctuated throughout the day, and how his mental clarity was impacted. But as he dove deeper into the process, Musk also began to learn more about the foods themselves. The omega-3 fatty acids in the salmon weren't just good for muscle recovery, they had been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects, which meant that Musk's joints, which had started to feel stiff from years of hard work, would benefit too. The eggs, which were rich in essential amino acids, were promoting muscle protein synthesis, the key process that allowed his muscles to repair and grow. And the spinach, with its high magnesium content, was helping regulate muscle function and reduce muscle cramps, something Musk had started to struggle with during his late-night work sessions. But as Musk continued to focus on his own health, he couldn't help but think of others who might be in the same situation. People over 50, especially those who had spent decades building their careers and families, often found themselves facing the same challenges. The loss of muscle mass wasn't just about vanity. It was about quality of life. It was about being able to move freely, to stay active, and to live life without feeling weighed down by fatigue or weakness. Musk realized that this journey was bigger than just his personal experiment. If he could prove that these foods were effective, he could potentially change the way people thought about aging and muscle health. With renewed purpose, Musk threw himself into his experiment even harder. He began to notice even more significant changes in his body. His posture improved, his body felt more toned, and his recovery from intense physical exertion was faster. Even the little things, like climbing stairs without feeling winded or getting through a busy day without feeling completely drained, started to feel like victories. The journey was far from over, but Musk was beginning to see the results he had been hoping for. The road ahead would no doubt be full of new challenges, but this was a breakthrough moment. A moment where the power of simple, natural nutrition had started to change the course of his health. It wasn't the answer to everything, but it was a significant step in the right direction. The climb to better health, to a stronger body and mind, was becoming less of a battle and more of a journey of self-discovery. Musk wasn't just hacking his body, he was rediscovering what it meant to feel alive, to feel strong, and to feel in control once again. As Musk continued on this journey, he couldn't wait to share the lessons he was learning, lessons that could help others reclaim their strength and vitality as they aged. The path had only just begun, but it was clear: the discovery of 3 simple foods was transforming his life in ways he never expected. The days had started to blend together, and Elon Musk found himself in a rhythm he hadn't experienced in years. The fatigue that once felt like an unshakable cloud hovering over him was lifting. His mornings no longer began with the sharp sting of exhaustion, and the long nights of work didn't feel as draining. His muscles, once stiff and sore from the grind of life, were becoming more agile, more responsive. For the first time in months, Musk felt like his body was catching up with his mind, and that was a monumental feeling. But in the midst of this slow, steady progress, Musk's journey took an unexpected turn, one that would serve as the emotional climax of his quest for better health. It began on a Wednesday. Musk had spent the morning in meetings with his engineers and then had a video call with the SpaceX team to discuss the latest developments on the Mars mission. As usual, he didn't take a break for lunch, opting instead to power through the afternoon. By the time the evening arrived, Musk felt the familiar weight of fatigue beginning to settle in. He had been feeling better overall, but today was different. He felt drained, almost as if his body had hit a wall. It wasn't just physical exhaustion. His mind, too, felt foggy. The clarity he had been experiencing was starting to fade. He felt irritable, his thoughts moving faster than he could process them. He paced around his office, trying to shake off the heaviness, but it wouldn't lift. For the first time since starting his experiment, Musk felt a deep, gut-wrenching doubt creeping into his mind. Could he really maintain this level of improvement over the long term? What if his body wasn't going to bounce back as he had hoped? What if this was just a temporary burst of energy that would fizzle out? The old doubts began to resurface, the same doubts that had plagued him when he first started exploring this new diet. Was it too good to be true? His heart raced, and he felt a tightness in his chest. The once confident, resolute Musk suddenly found himself feeling vulnerable. Was this just the inevitable reality of aging? Was there any real solution? The sudden surge of doubt was more than just a physical slump, it was an emotional breaking point. Musk's mind, always so focused on solving the world's toughest problems, now found itself questioning the very thing that had driven him for decades, his ability to persevere in the face of personal limitations. But this moment of despair wasn't the end. It was the turning point, the moment when Musk's mind snapped into action, as it always did in the face of adversity. He thought back to the initial excitement he'd felt when he started his experiment. The progress, however small, was proof that something was working. He couldn't let a single off day define the journey he was on. Musk decided to take a different approach. Instead of pushing through the fatigue like he had in the past, he chose to listen to his body. He took a step back, cancelled the remainder of his meetings for the day, and decided to do something he rarely allowed himself: rest. He cooked himself a simple dinner. Salmon with a side of spinach, a reminder of what had been helping him along the way. He sat down to eat in silence, reflecting on how far he had come. It wasn't just the physical changes that mattered, it was the mental and emotional clarity that had been returning to him in waves. That clarity was his true power. It was what had allowed him to build companies, to envision a future beyond Earth, to challenge the impossible. That night, as Musk lay in bed, the storm of doubt began to settle. He realized that this journey wasn't just about muscle health. It was about embracing the process, accepting the ups and downs, and learning how to navigate through the rough patches. It was about resilience, not just in the body, but in the mind. The next morning, Musk woke up with a renewed sense of determination. His energy had returned, and his mind felt clearer than it had the day before. The physical improvements were still there, and although he knew that results took time, he was more certain than ever that this was the path forward. The doubt that had momentarily shaken him had given way to a newfound clarity. Musk understood that his body, like any complex system, would have its fluctuations. There would be days of exhaustion and days of vitality, and that was okay. But what mattered was the long-term commitment to the process, the discipline to stick with it, and the belief that consistent small changes could lead to big results. The foods he had incorporated into his diet weren't a magic fix. They weren't a quick solution. They were, however, a foundation for building lasting change. In the days that followed, Musk's energy levels remained consistent, and his physical strength continued to improve. He no longer felt the weight of exhaustion hanging over him. His focus remained sharp, and his ability to recover from long hours of work and travel became a new norm. He felt like he was not only regaining his strength but that he was becoming stronger than he had been in years. But it wasn't just about the foods anymore. Musk had learned something profound in his moment of vulnerability. It wasn't just about the physical improvements, though they were crucial, it was also about the mental shift that accompanied them. He had realized that true strength came from understanding the ebb and flow of the journey, from accepting the highs and lows, and from finding balance in both the body and the mind. This emotional turning point marked a new chapter in Musk's journey. He knew that his experiment was far from over, but now, he had a deeper sense of what it meant to truly invest in his health. It wasn't about quick fixes or instant results. It was about consistency, commitment, and resilience in the face of challenges. And as he reflected on everything he had learned, Musk knew that this journey was something he had to share with the world. If he could conquer this challenge, perhaps others could too. Aging wasn't a curse, it was an opportunity to redefine what it meant to be strong, healthy, and vibrant at any age. The turning point had arrived. Musk was ready to take this newfound wisdom and continue his journey with renewed purpose. There was more to be done, more to discover, and more to prove, not just to himself, but to the millions of people who, like him, were looking for a way to maintain their strength and vitality as they grew older. The morning sun rose with a familiar warmth, and Elon Musk awoke to the feeling of calm clarity that had eluded him just a few days ago. His body felt lighter, not in the way that you might feel after a good night's rest, but in a more profound sense. He could move without the creaks and groans that had become all too familiar over the past few months. His muscles felt firmer, more responsive. His mind was clearer, more present. The mental fog that once clouded his thoughts had lifted, replaced by sharpness and focus. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a new version of himself that had been hidden beneath years of relentless work and strain. Musk stood up from his bed, stretching his arms above his head. The usual twinge in his lower back was gone. He had been on this health journey long enough now to know that the small changes, like the reduction in muscle soreness or the improved flexibility, were just the beginning. He had come to terms with the fact that there was no one-size-fits-all solution to aging, no quick fix, but what he was experiencing was real. It wasn't just a fleeting moment of hope, it was progress. The foods, salmon, eggs, and spinach, had proven to be more than just dietary staples. They had become the foundation of his renewed health. He had started this experiment with the idea that these simple, whole foods might offer some benefit, but now, he could see that they had done something far more significant. They had sparked a transformation, not only in his physical body but in his approach to life. It was as if the journey of rebuilding his muscle health had mirrored his journey of personal growth. But Musk wasn't naive. He knew that this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. His experiment had reached a point where the results were no longer theoretical. They were real, tangible, and undeniable. He could feel his body becoming stronger, more resilient. His stamina during long days of work was improving, and his recovery from physical exertion was quicker. But more importantly, he had a sense of balance, something he hadn't experienced in years. His mind was clearer, his focus sharper, and his drive remained as intense as ever. Musk couldn't ignore the fact that his emotional state had changed too. The moment of doubt, the emotional breaking point he had reached, had been pivotal. It wasn't just a physical transformation that had taken place. His mindset had shifted, and in doing so, he had learned something valuable. The power to overcome obstacles wasn't just about pushing through physical pain or forcing himself to work harder. It was about understanding that resilience came from both the body and the mind. There would always be ups and downs, but the key was to keep going, to embrace the process, and to trust that the results would follow. As Musk reflected on this, he realized that his experiment had not only benefited him but had the potential to help millions of people, especially those over 50. He had heard so many stories of people struggling with their health as they aged, feeling as if their bodies were betraying them, unable to keep up with the demands of their busy lives. They were tired, weak, and frustrated. Musk had once been on that same path, but now he knew that there was hope. The answer wasn't a miracle drug or an extreme fitness regimen, it was about small, sustainable changes to the way people nourish their bodies. By incorporating whole, nutrient-dense foods like salmon, eggs, and spinach into their diets, people could regain their strength, clarity, and vitality. The path was not easy, but it was simple, and it was achievable for anyone willing to put in the effort. Musk's story, however, wasn't just about muscle health or aging. It was about the power of perseverance, of finding ways to challenge ourselves even when things seem tough. Musk had always been a believer in innovation and pushing boundaries, and now, he was applying that same philosophy to his own health. He was experimenting with his body, seeking the best ways to optimize his physical and mental well-being. And in doing so, he had discovered a truth that would not only change his life but could potentially change the lives of others as well. The road ahead would still have its challenges. Musk knew that maintaining his health would require ongoing commitment and discipline. But the lessons he had learned were clear: the path to health wasn't about extremes. It wasn't about searching for a quick fix or the latest fad. It was about making informed choices and sticking with them over time. Musk was more committed than ever to sharing what he had learned. He knew that as he continued to experiment with his health, others would benefit from his discoveries. People over 50, who often felt as though their time had passed, could reclaim their strength, energy, and vitality. Aging wasn't something to fear, it was an opportunity to evolve, to grow, and to redefine what it meant to live a full life. In the coming weeks, Musk began to share his journey with others, his colleagues, friends, and family. He talked openly about the foods that had made a difference and the importance of being mindful of one's health, especially as we age. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People who had once felt resigned to the inevitable decline of their physical health began to see a glimmer of hope. Musk had opened their eyes to the possibility of change, and now they, too, were starting their own journeys toward better health. But Musk didn't stop there. He partnered with health experts and nutritionists to further explore the impact of food on muscle health and aging. He invested in research to determine how these nutrients could be optimized and how people could incorporate them into their daily lives. He knew that knowledge was power, and the more people understood about how to care for their bodies, the better equipped they would be to age gracefully and healthfully. Looking out over the horizon, Musk felt a renewed sense of purpose. His work at Tesla, SpaceX, and beyond would continue, but now, he had a new mission: to spread the message of health and longevity, to show people that no matter their age, they could still feel strong, energized, and empowered. The breakthrough he had experienced wasn't just personal, it was something that could change the world. In the end, Musk realized that this journey wasn't about perfecting his body or achieving the ultimate form of health. It was about embracing the process, the trials, the errors, and the small victories along the way. The pursuit of better health was just like any other challenge he had faced in his life, it was about progress, not perfection. And as he moved forward, he was more determined than ever to keep pushing the boundaries of what was possible, both for himself and for others. As he looked out at the vast, limitless sky, Musk smiled. He had learned that aging didn't mean losing control, it meant finding new ways to take control. And this was just the beginning. The progress Elon Musk had made in his personal health journey seemed undeniable. His physical strength was improving, his energy levels were more stable, and his focus had sharpened. He had proven to himself that the right foods, salmon, eggs, and spinach, were having a profound impact on his muscle health. Yet, as with any bold idea, the road ahead was not free from resistance. Musk knew that one of the keys to making his findings meaningful was to share them with the world. He had already seen firsthand how these simple, nutrient-dense foods had changed his life, but there was a bigger challenge ahead: convincing others, particularly experts in nutrition and fitness, that what he was experiencing wasn't just coincidence. It was a typical Tuesday morning when Musk sat across from a prominent group of nutritionists and fitness experts. He had invited them to a meeting at one of his offices, hoping to have an open, honest conversation about his findings. After all, he was convinced that he had stumbled upon something revolutionary, something that could change the way we approached aging and muscle health. But the skepticism that greeted him was immediate and intense. "I'm not sure you're fully understanding the science behind muscle aging, Elon," Dr. Natalie Carter, a respected nutritionist specializing in aging, said, shaking her head. "The body goes through a natural process of sarcopenia, which means muscle loss is inevitable. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but there's more at play than just the foods you're eating." Musk nodded, trying to remain calm despite the feeling of frustration building inside him. "I get that. But what I'm seeing isn't just about aging. It's about nutrient density. The right foods can slow, and perhaps even reverse, some of these effects. I'm telling you, I've seen a difference in my own body. I feel stronger, more agile, and more energized. And I know this is just the beginning." But Dr. Carter wasn't convinced. "Elon, we can't base something as important as this on anecdotal evidence. You're one person, and while I respect your experience, we need controlled studies to validate these claims." It wasn't just Dr. Carter. The others at the table, all highly respected professionals in their respective fields, expressed doubt. Some even chuckled, clearly dismissing the idea that 3 simple foods could have such a transformative effect. There were murmurs about the need for more rigorous research, clinical trials, and proper testing before such claims could be taken seriously. The tension in the room thickened as Musk listened to the feedback, but instead of backing down, he felt more resolute. He had always been a man who thrived on pushing boundaries and challenging the status quo. The doubts of experts didn't intimidate him, they fueled him. "I understand your skepticism," Musk said, leaning forward with intensity. "But I've made a commitment to this. I'm not going to let one setback or one person's doubt stop me from proving that this works. I believe there's something here that could change how we view aging. And I'm going to keep moving forward with it." Dar. Carter gave him a disbelieving look but said nothing more. Musk could feel the weight of the skepticism in the room, but it wasn't enough to stop him. If anything, it spurred him on. He knew that any new idea, especially one challenging the established norms, would face resistance. But he had experienced enough in his career to know that the most revolutionary breakthroughs often come with the most opposition. As the meeting ended, Musk left the room with a mix of emotions. Part of him felt frustrated by the lack of support, but another part of him felt invigorated. He had always trusted his instincts and, at this moment, he knew in his gut that he was onto something. The breakthrough he had found wasn't just a theory, it was something he had lived through, something that was changing his life. If he could prove it for himself, surely he could show the world. The skeptics would have their doubts, but Musk was determined to push forward. He wasn't going to let this be the end. He was going to take the next steps to prove that these simple foods could have a profound impact on muscle health after 50. It wasn't going to be easy. He knew the road ahead would be full of obstacles, but Musk had faced challenges before, and he had never backed down. He was more determined than ever to find a way to make these foods work for everyone. Elon Musk was no stranger to testing theories. Whether it was pushing the boundaries of space travel with SpaceX or pioneering electric vehicles with Tesla, he had always embraced experimentation. But this new challenge, one that involved his own body, was unlike any he had faced before. There were no spaceships or rockets involved, no groundbreaking tech to build, just his body, 3 simple foods, and the hope that they could reverse the effects of aging and muscle degeneration. After the meeting with the skeptical experts, Musk was more determined than ever to prove that his personal experience wasn't just an anomaly. It was time to start documenting his journey more rigorously. He was going to put the foods to the test, not just for himself, but for anyone over 50 who had long felt that the decline of their muscle health was inevitable. The first thing Musk did was carefully plan his meals around the 3 key foods: salmon, eggs, and spinach. He began each day with a breakfast of scrambled eggs, sautéed spinach, and a side of smoked salmon. For lunch, he'd enjoy a spinach salad with grilled salmon and a few hard-boiled eggs for added protein. Dinner consisted of baked salmon with a side of spinach and a few eggs mixed in, either as an omelette or in a side dish. It was simple, clean eating. There was no fancy meal prep or expensive supplements, just whole, natural ingredients. But Musk was nothing if not thorough, so he also set up a detailed tracking system. He recorded his daily meals, noting how his body felt before and after eating. He tracked his energy levels, muscle soreness, focus, and overall physical and emotional well-being. It wasn't a quick process, but Musk was determined to follow the data. Each morning he would weigh himself, take measurements of his arms and legs, and make notes about his physical appearance. He'd take photos of himself each week, documenting any changes he noticed in his muscle tone, posture, and strength. The first week was difficult. Musk found himself questioning whether this was going to work. The meals were easy to prepare, but the results didn't come overnight. There were days when his muscles still felt sore after a long workout, and his energy levels weren't always consistent. Sometimes, he felt frustrated. He had hoped that he would immediately see a drastic transformation, but reality wasn't so simple. This wasn't a quick fix, it was going to take time. But as the days went on, Musk noticed subtle changes. He wasn't waking up with the same aches and pains in his joints that he had felt before. His body seemed to be recovering more quickly after workouts. He could push himself harder, and while his muscles were still sore at the end of a long day, they weren't as stiff or difficult to move. It was small progress, but it was progress nonetheless. In week 2, Musk decided to go a step further. He knew that just tracking his own results wasn't enough. He needed more people to join him in this experiment. So, he reached out to a group of close colleagues and friends, people he trusted, and asked them to try the same diet, documenting their experiences along the way. They ranged from fellow engineers at Tesla to longtime friends in the business world, all of them over 50 and all of them interested in improving their health. Some were skeptical, but they all agreed to give it a try. Musk wasn't just interested in seeing the effects on his own body. He wanted to see if the foods would work for other people too, especially those who had been struggling with their own aging bodies. They agreed to follow the diet for a month, and they set up a private group to track their progress and share their experiences. As with Musk, they would keep a detailed log of their energy levels, muscle strength, and overall well-being. For the next few weeks, the group shared their stories. Some found that their energy levels were more consistent throughout the day. Others reported feeling stronger during workouts or noticing a reduction in muscle soreness. The most surprising feedback, though, came from a few people who had been struggling with more than just muscle health. A couple of them reported feeling less anxious, more focused, and generally in a better mood. The food seemed to have more than just physical benefits, they were impacting their emotional and mental states as well. But not everyone experienced the same improvements. A few participants noted that they still felt sluggish or didn't see much change in their muscle tone. Musk knew that the process of muscle regeneration was complex and that everyone's body would respond differently. But the overall consensus was clear: for most, the foods were making a difference. Slowly, but surely, the group was beginning to see positive changes. Musk kept documenting his own results, adjusting his meals and workout routines based on the feedback from his group. He began adding more variety to the spinach, experimenting with different types of leafy greens to add some diversity to his meals. He also played around with the cooking methods for the salmon, sometimes grilling it, other times baking it, and occasionally even smoking it for added flavor. As the weeks turned into a month, Musk was beginning to see a more noticeable difference in his own muscle health. His body felt stronger, and his muscles were becoming more defined. He had more stamina during his workouts and found that he could push through fatigue more easily. But the real test would come when he reached the halfway point of his 90-day experiment. He knew that this was just the beginning, but he could already tell that the results were more than just a fluke. There was something to this. He could feel it. The group's progress was similarly encouraging. Some participants had gone from feeling hesitant to becoming passionate advocates of the diet. Musk could sense the shift in them. What had started as an experiment had begun to feel like a movement. They weren't just following a diet, they were embracing a new way of thinking about aging and health. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. Musk had to stay patient, reminding himself and others that the changes were gradual, and results wouldn't happen overnight. In the coming chapters, the next set of challenges would reveal themselves, and the path wouldn't always be smooth. But for the first time in a long while, Musk felt a growing sense of optimism. His personal mission was no longer just about proving a point to the skeptics, it was about creating a lasting, positive impact on others, especially those over 50 who had long resigned themselves to the idea that muscle health inevitably deteriorated with age. As the weeks passed, Elon Musk's journey into muscle health was becoming increasingly difficult to navigate. While there were glimmers of progress, the road was full of unexpected challenges, both physical and emotional. The early days of excitement and curiosity had given way to a more sobering reality. Building muscle after 50 wasn't just about eating the right foods. It was about consistency, patience, and mental resilience. Musk had always prided himself on his ability to push through difficult situations. Whether it was designing reusable rockets or taking on electric vehicles, he had faced countless obstacles and never backed down. But muscle health, especially at his age, was different. The body was stubborn, and no matter how much he ate the right foods or pushed himself in the gym, there were moments when it felt like his muscles weren't responding the way they should. By now, Musk had been following his strict diet of salmon, eggs, and spinach for nearly a month, but the results weren't as dramatic as he had hoped. His energy levels had improved slightly, and there was less muscle soreness after workouts, but the muscle growth he expected to see wasn't happening as quickly as he had envisioned. The weight he was lifting hadn't increased as significantly as he thought it would, and he still found himself feeling fatigued at the end of long days. The frustration began to build. After all, if this was truly the breakthrough he had believed it to be, why wasn't his body responding more quickly? The slow pace of progress weighed heavily on his mind. Each morning, he would step on the scale, hoping for a noticeable change. Each week, he would take new photos, expecting to see his muscles become more defined. But the differences were so subtle that they felt almost imperceptible. It was around this time that Musk reached a breaking point. One evening, after a particularly grueling workout, he stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing his reflection. He flexed his arms, tried to see any improvement in his legs, but the reality was stark. His body didn't look drastically different. His muscles weren't bulging the way he had hoped for. There was a moment of self-doubt that crept in. Maybe it's not going to work, he muttered to himself, a rare moment of defeat. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't the solution I thought it was. He thought about all the skeptics who had told him that reversing muscle aging was impossible, that it was a fantasy. And for the first time, he questioned whether they might have been right. But Musk wasn't one to stay down for long. After a few days of self-reflection and frustration, he returned to his experiment with renewed focus. He reminded himself that nothing truly groundbreaking came easily or quickly. SpaceX didn't land rockets on Earth overnight, and Tesla didn't revolutionize the auto industry without years of struggle. The real test was not whether success came instantly, but whether he could persist in the face of adversity. Musk reached out to his small group of friends and colleagues who had been following the diet along with him. They, too, had encountered their own share of setbacks. Some reported that they were struggling with muscle soreness or feeling discouraged by their lack of progress. A few had even begun to question whether the foods Musk had recommended were truly having any effect at all. But there were also success stories, however small. One of his colleagues, Sarah, who had been dealing with joint pain for years, noticed that her discomfort had decreased significantly. Another friend, Mark, a former athlete, mentioned that his strength during his workouts had improved, even if his muscles weren't as visibly defined as he had hoped. For many of them, the biggest change wasn't in their muscle mass, but in their overall sense of well-being. They felt more energetic, more focused, and even more motivated to continue their fitness routines. Despite the hurdles, these small wins kept Musk going. It wasn't just about muscle growth, it was about the broader impact the diet had on overall health. These foods weren't some miracle cure that would instantly transform aging bodies into youthful ones. But there was evidence that they were providing benefits that extended beyond the visible changes Musk had initially expected. Musk had always believed in the power of incremental improvements, and this journey was no different. He needed to shift his mindset. The goal wasn't just about looking more muscular or achieving quick results. It was about optimizing health over the long term. Aging wasn't a process that could be reversed in a matter of weeks, but with the right foods and lifestyle changes, Musk believed that it could be slowed, managed, and even improved. At this point, Musk made a conscious decision to double down on his effort. He started diversifying his workout routine, incorporating more strength training exercises that focused on muscle endurance rather than raw strength. He also began to pay more attention to his recovery, making sure that he was getting enough sleep and managing stress more effectively. His dedication began to pay off. Slowly but surely, the small, subtle changes became more noticeable. He started to feel stronger during his workouts, able to push through exercises he'd once struggled with. His muscles began to feel more resilient, and he could sense that they were adapting to the demands he was placing on them. The soreness he had felt in the past became less frequent and less intense. Even though the transformation wasn't immediate, the incremental improvements were enough to keep Musk motivated. The challenge of building muscle after 50 was daunting, but it wasn't impossible. And with each passing day, he was getting closer to proving that these small changes could make a big difference in the long run. By now, Elon Musk had completed over a month of his muscle health experiment, with subtle yet promising results. However, he knew that in order to understand whether the foods were truly the key to his transformation, he needed to dive deeper into their nutritional properties. As always, Musk's scientific mind wanted to go beyond simple observation. He wanted to understand the exact mechanisms behind the foods that were supposedly helping him and his group. With the help of a few trusted nutritionists and biochemists, Musk began to research the science behind the three foods, salmon, eggs, and spinach, and their potential benefits for muscle health, especially for those over 50. The goal was clear: to explain how each food supported muscle regeneration, and how they could be used in daily meals for people who were hoping to improve their own health. Salmon, particularly wild-caught, was the cornerstone of Musk's diet, providing an abundant source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are essential for muscle health. Omega-3s are polyunsaturated fats that have long been known for their anti-inflammatory properties. This was important for Musk's experiment because muscle inflammation, particularly as one ages, can slow recovery times, increase soreness, and hinder muscle repair. The benefits of omega-3s didn't stop at reducing inflammation. These fatty acids also play a crucial role in protein synthesis, the process through which the body builds new muscle tissue. Research has shown that omega-3s can enhance the body's ability to retain and use protein, a critical factor in muscle growth and repair. Additionally, salmon was a rich source of high-quality protein, essential for muscle maintenance, especially for those over 50 who experience sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. In fact, a 3.5-ounce serving of salmon provided roughly 22 grams of protein, making it an excellent source for maintaining muscle mass. Moreover, salmon was also a great source of vitamin D, a nutrient that many older adults are deficient in. Vitamin D plays a key role in muscle function, and studies have shown that maintaining adequate levels can help improve strength and reduce the risk of falls in older adults. Salmon isn't just a tasty food, Musk said to his group in a video message, his enthusiasm evident. It's a powerhouse of nutrients that can do a lot for your muscle health, and we're just getting started. Eggs were another cornerstone of Musk's muscle health diet, and for good reason. Eggs are often referred to as the perfect protein, because they contain all 9 essential amino acids needed for muscle repair and growth. This makes eggs an excellent source of high-quality protein. One large egg contains about 6 grams of protein, and it's packed with nutrients that contribute to muscle health, including vitamins B12, riboflavin, and folate, all of which are necessary for energy production and muscle function. But it wasn't just the protein content that made eggs a valuable part of Musk's diet. The yolk, often dismissed in many diet fads, contained essential fats and micronutrients like choline, which is crucial for brain health and muscle function. Eggs also contain lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants that help fight oxidative stress. Oxidative stress can hinder muscle recovery, especially as the body ages, making antioxidants an important part of any anti-aging diet. Furthermore, eggs provide a good balance of fats and protein, making them an excellent choice for a muscle-building meal. Unlike lean meats, which can be lower in fats, eggs provide a combination of fat and protein that helps with the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, which play an important role in muscle health. Elon explained to his group, eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods available. They're not only good for your muscles, but they support your brain, your energy levels, and your overall health. If you aren't eating eggs, you're missing out. The third key food in Musk's experiment was spinach. While it may not seem as flashy as salmon or eggs, spinach is a true nutritional powerhouse, especially for aging muscles. Rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, spinach provides numerous benefits for muscle health. First and foremost, spinach is loaded with magnesium, a mineral that plays a critical role in muscle function. Magnesium helps regulate muscle contractions and is crucial for the synthesis of proteins. Many people over 50 are deficient in magnesium, which can contribute to muscle cramps, fatigue, and reduced muscle strength. By adding spinach to his meals, Musk ensured that he was getting enough magnesium to support his muscles as they repaired and grew. Spinach is also an excellent source of vitamin K, which plays a role in bone health. Healthy bones are essential for muscle strength and function, especially as we age. As we get older, bone density tends to decrease, leading to a higher risk of fractures and osteoporosis. By incorporating spinach into his meals, Musk ensured he was providing his body with the necessary nutrients to support both his muscles and bones. Additionally, spinach contains nitrates, which have been shown to improve blood flow and oxygen delivery to muscles. Improved circulation helps muscles recover more quickly after exercise and supports overall muscle endurance, making spinach an excellent choice for anyone looking to maintain muscle health as they age. Spinach may not be the most exciting food, but it's a secret weapon when it comes to muscle health, Musk said with a smile. It's packed with magnesium, vitamins, and other nutrients that work together to keep your muscles strong and your body functioning at its best. Elon's experiment had always been about simplicity and sustainability. The three foods, salmon, eggs, and spinach, were not only highly nutritious but also versatile and easy to incorporate into daily meals. Musk shared with his group that he had found countless ways to enjoy these foods, from scrambled eggs with spinach for breakfast to salmon salad with a side of sautéed spinach for lunch. For dinner, he loved making salmon fillets with a side of spinach cooked in olive oil and garlic, sometimes adding an egg for extra protein. The combinations were endless, and Musk encouraged his followers to experiment with different recipes to find what worked best for them. The key, he said, is to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Focus on whole, nutrient-dense foods that can provide all the vitamins and minerals your body needs. Elon's deep dive into the nutritional science behind his experiment had confirmed what he already suspected: these foods were not just beneficial, they were essential for anyone over 50 who wanted to maintain or improve their muscle health. By incorporating salmon, eggs, and spinach into their diets, Musk believed that anyone could unlock their potential for strength, energy, and vitality, regardless of their age. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Just as Elon Musk began to feel a renewed sense of optimism about his muscle health journey, reality hit with a crushing setback. After a few weeks of seeing subtle but positive changes, more energy, less soreness, and slight improvements in muscle strength, he was suddenly faced with an unexpected challenge. Musk had always prided himself on his ability to tackle problems head-on, but this was different. It started with an injury. One evening, after a particularly intense workout in his private gym, Musk felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. At first, he brushed it off, assuming it was just the usual soreness that came with pushing his body harder than usual. But as the days passed, the pain persisted, and soon it was clear that it wasn't just a typical post-workout ache. He found it difficult to raise his arm above his head without feeling a sharp twinge. Concerned, Musk decided to see a specialist. The diagnosis was both frustrating and sobering: a mild rotator cuff strain. The doctor assured him that it wasn't a severe injury, but it would require rest, physical therapy, and a reduction in the intensity of his workouts. The timing couldn't have been worse. Musk had been feeling like he was on the cusp of something revolutionary, and now this injury felt like a major roadblock. His immediate reaction was disbelief. How could he have made such progress only to be set back by an injury so early in the process? He thought back to his workouts, the extra sets, the heavier weights. He had been pushing himself hard, but now it felt like his body was rebelling against him. The next few days were filled with frustration. Musk found himself in his office late into the night, reviewing his workout plans and diet, trying to figure out what went wrong. His schedule had been rigorous, but that's how he had always operated. Still, the injury was a reminder that no matter how focused or disciplined you are, the human body has its limits. "I thought I was invincible," Musk said, rubbing his shoulder as he sat at his desk. "I believed that if I just pushed harder, my body would catch up. But now it feels like I'm paying the price for overestimating what I could do." The setback was more than just physical. Musk was emotionally invested in this project, and the injury felt like a personal failure. The experiment wasn't just about muscle health, it was about proving that age didn't have to dictate your health or your future. He had been touting the benefits of his new approach, advocating for the simple power of nutrition and consistent effort. Now, he had to confront the reality that muscle health was more complicated than he had initially thought. The pressure built, and Musk began to question whether this journey was truly worth it. Was it worth it to keep pushing forward when the results were so slow? Was it worth it to risk further injury just for the sake of proving a point? He was at a crossroads, unsure of whether to continue with his mission or take a step back to let his body recover fully. But then, in one of his late-night sessions, something clicked. Musk realized that the setback wasn't a failure. It was simply another challenge to overcome. He had always believed in the power of perseverance and adaptation. This injury didn't change the bigger picture, it was just a part of the process. Every journey, every breakthrough, required overcoming obstacles, and this was his. The following morning, he woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined not to let this injury derail his entire plan. He reached out to his physical therapist, scheduling a session that day, and he began adjusting his workouts to accommodate his recovery. He also started to take a more balanced approach, incorporating more rest into his schedule, something he had neglected in his previous intensity-driven approach. But beyond the physical changes, there was an emotional shift. Musk had always been the one pushing boundaries, breaking through limits. He knew that this injury wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of how far he had pushed himself. It was a reminder that he was human, that even the most driven individuals had to respect their bodies and give them time to heal. Musk's focus shifted slightly. Rather than obsessing over achieving rapid muscle growth, he began to focus on the process itself. He embraced the idea that strength wasn't just physical, it was mental, too. The ability to accept setbacks, adjust, and keep moving forward was just as important as lifting heavier weights or seeing faster results. Over the following weeks, Musk's perspective on the experiment deepened. He continued with his diet, though he reduced the intensity of his workouts, favoring recovery and consistency over pushing too hard. He spent more time reading about recovery strategies and muscle health in aging adults, delving into the science of how the body repairs itself. Musk also reached out to some of his colleagues who had been following his experiment. He wanted to know how they were faring and whether they had encountered similar challenges. Their responses were mixed, with some reporting minor injuries or fatigue, while others were still seeing steady progress. It became clear that muscle health after 50 was a complex issue, and there were no shortcuts. Results would vary, and the process would require patience, consistency, and a willingness to adapt. In an unexpected moment of clarity, Musk shared a video update with his followers. In it, he acknowledged the setback and explained how it had shifted his approach. "I've always believed that you have to keep going, no matter what," he said, speaking directly to the camera. "Sometimes, that means slowing down, taking a step back, and letting your body recover. This journey isn't just about the destination, it's about the lessons we learn along the way. And this setback is just another lesson to embrace." The video struck a chord with his audience. Many of them had also been struggling with the same issues, whether it was physical injuries, slow progress, or doubts about whether the effort was worth it. Musk's vulnerability, his willingness to admit that not every part of the journey would be easy, resonated deeply with his followers. It reminded them that no one was immune to setbacks, and that it was possible to overcome them with the right mindset. As Elon Musk navigated his recovery from the shoulder injury, He realized something that he hadn't fully appreciated before, the importance of support from friends and colleagues. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of physical pain, mental strain, and self-doubt. He had been consumed with finding answers to muscle health after 50, and yet, in this moment of vulnerability, it was clear that no one could accomplish such a transformative journey alone. Musk reached out to a small group of trusted friends, many of whom were also successful entrepreneurs or scientists who had witnessed his relentless drive firsthand. There was Greg, an old college friend and fitness enthusiast, who had always been Musk's sounding board for health-related questions. And then there was his longtime colleague, Dr. Linda Parks, a biologist with extensive experience in human health and aging, who had been following Musk's experiment closely. Elon had always prided himself on being independent, but now, more than ever, he understood the value of having a circle of people who could offer not just technical advice, but also emotional support. His first call was to Greg, who had recently turned 50 and had been on his own fitness journey for the past few years. Greg's voice crackled through the phone as he answered. "Hey, Elon. How's the muscle journey going? Heard you hit a bit of a snag with that shoulder issue," Greg said, his tone both casual and concerned. "I'm getting there," Elon replied, leaning back in his office chair, staring out the window. "I thought I had it all figured out, but this injury has thrown me for a loop. I'm frustrated." Greg chuckled, a deep, knowing laugh. "You and me both, man. But hey, recovery's part of the process, right? I've been through my fair share of setbacks. The key is giving your body the time it needs. And remember, your journey isn't just about muscle, it's about learning how to work with your body, not against it." Elon couldn't help but smile at the simplicity of Greg's words. It was a sentiment he had often given to others, but hearing it from someone who truly understood was different. For the first time in weeks, Elon felt a wave of relief. "Thanks, Greg. I needed to hear that," Musk said, his voice softer than usual. "I've been pushing myself so hard that I forgot that part of progress is actually slowing down and listening to my body." "Exactly," Greg said. "Muscle health, especially as we get older, isn't about going full throttle all the time. You've got to pace yourself, and sometimes that means taking a step back to move forward in the long run." Feeling reassured, Musk ended the call with a renewed sense of hope. But it wasn't just Greg's words that made a difference, it was the realization that he wasn't alone in this. Even the most successful people have their struggles, and what mattered was how they navigated those challenges. Elon now understood that true strength wasn't just about pushing through pain, it was about knowing when to ask for help, when to lean on others, and when to trust the process. The next call Musk made was to Dr. Linda Parks. They had been working together for years, but Linda had always been more of a behind-the-scenes contributor to his ventures. Musk respected her deeply, and he valued her scientific approach to health, which was exactly what he needed at this moment. "Linda, I need your perspective," Elon began, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "I've been pushing the limits of muscle regeneration after 50, and I've encountered a pretty serious setback. I've been testing these foods, but I'm starting to feel like I'm not seeing the results I was expecting. Should I be adjusting my approach, or is this part of the process?" Dr. Parks, as always, was direct and pragmatic. "Elon, setbacks are part of any scientific experiment, especially one that involves something as complex as aging and muscle health. But the fact that you're experiencing progress, even in the face of this injury, is a positive sign. But I still feel like I'm not making the kind of breakthroughs I was hoping for," Elon confessed. "It's frustrating." Linda's tone softened. "It's easy to get caught up in the pressure of immediate results, but muscle health is a long game, especially after 50. These foods you're testing are part of the puzzle, but they're not the only factor. Your body needs time to adapt to these changes. And most importantly, you need to focus on recovery and stress management. Those factors are just as important as diet and exercise." Musk's thoughts turned inward. He had always been so focused on the results, on seeing the physical evidence of success, that he hadn't fully considered the importance of mental and emotional recovery. He'd been so fixated on physical progress that he had neglected the role that stress and recovery played in the bigger picture. Right, Musk said slowly, letting Linda's words sink in. So, I need to be patient and trust the process more. This isn't going to be solved in a few weeks. I have to be more methodical. Exactly, Linda replied. Incorporating rest, reducing stress, and maintaining a steady but sustainable approach will give you the long-term results you're looking for. And as for the diet, it's a game changer, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle. Feeling more at ease after speaking with both Greg and Linda, Elon found himself reflecting on his journey. It wasn't just about muscle health, it was about learning how to balance the pursuit of physical strength with the mental and emotional resilience required to face setbacks head-on. Musk realized that he wasn't just learning about muscle regeneration, he was learning about himself. In the days that followed, Elon took a step back, scaling back his intense workouts and focusing more on rest and recovery. He restructured his approach to fitness, incorporating lower-intensity exercises and more restorative activities like stretching and yoga. He also made time for mindfulness practices, which had been long neglected in his pursuit of results. The changes weren't immediate, but over time, Musk began to feel the difference. His muscles started to feel less strained, and his energy levels were more stable. The frustration he had initially felt began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of calm and clarity. And most importantly, he felt the value of the support he had received from his friends. It was a reminder that even in the world of science and innovation, the human connection was a vital piece of the equation. Musk's message to his followers grew more focused, too. He started to share not just his successes but also his challenges, acknowledging that muscle health was a journey with its ups and downs. Through his vulnerability, he began to foster a deeper sense of community among those who were following his experiment. People shared their own struggles, victories, and advice, and Musk was humbled by the support he received. The journey was no longer just about proving a point, it was about building a community of people committed to improving their health, one small change at a time. As Elon Musk continued his journey towards better muscle health, a deep, personal revelation began to surface. His recovery process had forced him to slow down and reflect, and it was during this time of reflection that something unexpected happened, an insight that completely altered his understanding of the relationship between the foods he had been consuming and the way they impacted his muscles, his body, and even his mind. It all started during one of his early morning reflection sessions. Elon was sitting in the dim light of his study, a cup of herbal tea in hand, looking over the data he had gathered. He had been tracking his progress meticulously, documenting his workouts, his diet, his energy levels, and even his emotional state. He wasn't one to shy away from the science, and his meticulous approach had served him well in the past. But this time, as he pored over the numbers and patterns, something clicked. It wasn't just about the foods. Up until now, Elon had been focused on the physical benefits of these three foods, their ability to fuel muscle growth, reduce inflammation, and improve strength. But now, he realized that the changes he was experiencing in his body weren't solely related to muscle regeneration. There was something more subtle, more profound at play. He'd been experiencing something unexpected, an improvement not just in his muscles, but in his overall mental clarity and mood. There were mornings when he woke up feeling sharper, more focused, and more driven than he had in years. His energy was more consistent, his thoughts clearer, and his ability to concentrate seemed to have reached new heights. The frustration and stress that had once plagued him felt more manageable. Elon leaned forward, setting the cup of tea down on the desk, his eyes wide with realization. This wasn't just about regaining muscle strength after 50, it was about rejuvenating his whole system, mentally and physically. The foods weren't simply supporting muscle health, they were enhancing his overall well-being. And that connection, the deep, intricate link between nutrition, brain function, and muscle regeneration, was something Musk had never fully considered. He quickly called Dr. Linda Parks. "Linda," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "I think I've missed something big." "Big? What do you mean?" Linda responded, intrigued by his tone. I've been looking at the wrong thing, Elon said, pacing around his office, his mind racing. It's not just muscle health that's improving. It's my overall well-being, my focus, my mood, my energy levels. It's like these foods are doing something more than just regenerating my muscles. They're improving my entire system. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I thought you had already noticed that, Linda replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. We've talked about the fact that nutrition isn't just about muscle, it's about how food impacts every aspect of your health, including brain function. It's a holistic approach. That's why you're feeling better mentally as well. Musk stopped in his tracks. Linda's words struck him with a deeper resonance than before. I know, but it's different now. I thought I was just eating to fix my muscles. But now it feels like I'm feeding my whole body, my mind. I don't think I understood just how much nutrition could affect the way I feel on a daily basis, my thoughts, my mood, everything. Linda's voice softened. That's the power of a balanced, nutrient-dense diet. It's not just about one part of the body, it's about all of it. The foods you've been focusing on have a systemic impact. They're improving your muscle health, yes, but they're also helping your nervous system, your brain, your hormones, everything is interconnected. Elon sat down, the weight of the conversation sinking in. This was a game changer. All this time, he had been focusing on muscle regeneration as the sole goal, but now he realized that the path to optimal health wasn't just about building strength, it was about restoring balance across his entire body and mind. As he looked at the data he had gathered, he could see it all clearly now. The foods he had been consuming were rich in antioxidants, healthy fats, and anti-inflammatory compounds, elements that not only contributed to muscle recovery but also helped regulate hormones, reduce stress, and promote cognitive function. The omega-3s from fish, the polyphenol from berries, and the vitamin D from eggs, all of these played a role in reducing inflammation not just in his muscles, but in his brain and nervous system as well. And that, Elon realized, was the real breakthrough. He wasn't just avoiding the effects of aging on his muscles, he was actively fighting the cognitive decline and mental fatigue that came with it. His ability to focus for longer periods, his sharper thinking, and even his mood improvements were a direct result of nourishing his body with the right nutrients. Feeling exhilarated, Elon sat back in his chair. He now understood that this was no longer just about the physical side of aging, it was about the mind and body working together to fight the effects of time. And he realized something profound in that moment: it was never too late to change the trajectory of your life, to make small, intentional choices that could drastically improve the quality of your health, both physically and mentally. But this revelation wasn't just for him. Musk's mind raced ahead. If these findings were true for him, then they could be true for everyone, particularly those over 50, who often felt like their best years were behind them. This was a message that could change lives. It was more than a diet, it was a call to arms against the aging process, a rallying cry to take control of one's health at any age. Excited by the possibilities, Musk quickly began drafting a message for his followers. He shared his revelation in an update video, speaking directly to the camera with a renewed passion. Everyone talks about aging and muscle health, he began, but I've come to realize that it's not just about the muscles. It's about your entire body. It's about your mind, your energy, your focus. These foods I've been testing aren't just rebuilding muscle, they're helping me think clearer, feel better, and live with more vitality. This is a holistic approach, one that can transform how we age. Musk's message struck a deep chord with his followers. They began commenting, sharing their own experiences, and many started to see the benefits that Elon was now describing. They too felt more energized, more mentally sharp, and better equipped to handle the challenges that came with aging. The revelation wasn't just a breakthrough in muscle health, it was a shift in how Musk viewed aging itself. It was no longer something to be feared or fought against, it was an opportunity to improve, to refine, and to optimize every aspect of life. And the tools to do so were already within reach: the the right foods, the right mindset, and the willingness to make small, consistent changes. Elon Musk had always been a forward-thinking individual, relentless in his pursuit of innovation and improvement. But after his recent revelation about the interconnectedness of physical and mental health, it became clear that his journey to better muscle health was only just beginning. The epiphany that muscle regeneration and mental clarity were so closely intertwined forced him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about aging and wellness. What had started as a simple experiment to improve muscle strength had blossomed into a holistic approach to aging, one that involved not just nutrition but lifestyle adjustments that encompassed rest, stress management, and physical activity. Musk now realized that his journey was no longer just about hacking his muscles, it was about optimizing his entire life. He understood that aging wasn't an isolated process but one that affected the body, mind, and emotions as a whole. And to truly experience the benefits of these foods, he needed to incorporate all aspects of health into his daily routine. He began researching deeper, looking into practices that would complement the foods he was consuming. It was clear that while the right nutrition was essential, it was only part of the equation. In order to truly harness the power of these foods, Musk needed to rest more effectively, manage his stress, and focus on physical activity that would promote not just strength but overall well-being. "I need a new approach," Elon muttered to himself as he scrolled through his notes. He had been so focused on the foods that he had neglected other critical factors that contributed to his overall health. He couldn't afford to keep ignoring them. One of the first areas he tackled was his sleep. Musk, known for his intense work ethic and famously minimal sleep habits, had long relied on late nights and early mornings to accomplish his goals. But the toll it had taken on his body and mind was becoming increasingly apparent. He had started feeling mentally fatigued and emotionally drained more frequently, even with the improvements in muscle health. With his new perspective, Elon understood that proper rest was crucial to the body's ability to regenerate muscle tissue and repair itself. Research had shown that muscle recovery largely happens during sleep, when growth hormones are released and cells repair. It wasn't just about getting any sleep, it was about quality sleep. Restful, uninterrupted slumber was now a vital part of his regimen. Musk committed to restructuring his daily routine to allow for more rest. He set a firm boundary for his workday, limiting late-night meetings and making a point to wind down earlier in the evening. His sleep environment was optimized for maximum rest, blackout curtains, a cool room temperature, and a dedicated time for reflection and relaxation before bed. At first, it was challenging to break his old habits, but the benefits were undeniable. After just a few weeks of this new routine, he noticed his energy levels were consistently higher in the morning, and he woke up feeling more refreshed and mentally alert. The second area Elon Musk addressed was stress. For someone with his level of responsibility and numerous ventures, stress had been a constant companion. But the constant pressure of meeting deadlines, managing high-stakes projects, and navigating public scrutiny had taken a toll on his physical and emotional health. He had been so focused on productivity and results that he had forgotten to take care of his mind. The connection between stress and aging was not lost on Musk. He knew that chronic stress was linked to increased inflammation in the body, which could hinder the muscle repair process and accelerate the aging of cells. He had experienced firsthand how stress could drain both his mental clarity and his physical energy. Now, he was determined to incorporate techniques to mitigate stress and promote mental relaxation. Elon turned to meditation. At first, he was skeptical of the practice, but the science behind mindfulness and stress reduction was irrefutable. Research had shown that meditation could lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and improve brain function, which was exactly what he needed. He began with just 10 minutes a day, breathing exercises, focusing on the present moment, and letting go of his constant need to do everything. Over time, he extended his practice, finding peace in the stillness of his thoughts. In addition to meditation, he also incorporated physical activity that wasn't purely for muscle-building purposes but for relaxation. He took up yoga and spent time in nature, walking through the quiet paths near his home. These activities helped him reconnect with his body, relax his mind, and relieve tension. It became evident that a balanced lifestyle was essential to achieving the full benefits of his new approach. While his dietary changes and sleep improvements were essential to his recovery, Musk also knew that maintaining an active lifestyle was crucial to both his muscle health and his longevity. He couldn't rely solely on the foods and rest to make a lasting impact. He had to challenge his body and keep it engaged. Elon began diversifying his workouts. Instead of simply focusing on weightlifting, he incorporated a mix of cardio, flexibility exercises, and functional movements that would keep his muscles engaged without putting too much strain on his joints. He engaged in activities like swimming, hiking, and cycling, all of which provided a low-impact yet effective workout that contributed to his overall strength. He also embraced the idea of progressive overload, gradually increasing the intensity and volume of his workouts. The key was balance. It wasn't about pushing his body to the limits each day, it was about consistency, and ensuring that his body had the time and resources to repair and recover after each session. Musk quickly saw the results of this holistic approach. He felt stronger, both physically and mentally. His energy levels were more consistent throughout the day, and his mood was more stable. His muscles were regenerating, yes, but he was also feeling more capable and present in every area of his life. Musk was not one to keep his discoveries to himself. As he began seeing these positive changes, he knew that he had to share his new approach with the world. He began documenting his journey in greater detail, not just focusing on the foods he was eating but on his overall lifestyle adjustments. He filmed videos discussing his experiences with sleep, stress management, and physical activity, offering viewers a complete blueprint for how they could age more gracefully and feel better at any stage of life. Through his public platform, Elon began to inspire others to adopt a more holistic approach to aging. His followers, many of whom were in their 50s or beyond, started reporting similar improvements in their own lives. They, too, had found that the foods they were eating were not just improving their muscles but transforming their energy, mental clarity, and mood. Elon Musk's journey had come full circle. What had begun as an exploration into muscle health had blossomed into a holistic approach to aging, a blueprint for not just adding years to your life, but adding life to your years. Having refined his approach to health and fitness, Elon Musk was ready for the next step. He was no longer just testing the effects of specific foods on his body. His journey had expanded into a comprehensive lifestyle overhaul, one that integrated nutrition, rest, stress management, and physical activity into a balanced and sustainable regimen. Musk had seen promising results in his own life, and now it was time to put his findings to the ultimate test. As his personal transformation continued, Elon decided to share his approach with others. He felt a responsibility to help people, particularly those over the age of 50, who might feel like their best years were behind them. If this new strategy could work for him, he reasoned, then it could work for others too. It was time to see if the holistic approach to aging could deliver tangible results for more than just himself. Elon reached out to a small group of individuals, people in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, who had expressed interest in his findings. They were all dealing with various challenges related to aging, low energy, muscle fatigue, cognitive fog, and general wear and tear from years of living. Many of them were skeptical, unsure if such a radical approach could really change anything. After all, they had tried countless diets, exercise programs, and supplements over the years, with little to show for it. But Musk had inspired them with his honesty, his scientific rigor, and his personal transformation. This group of individuals, some family friends, some colleagues, and a few complete strangers, agreed to follow his plan. Each person would commit to incorporating the 3 key foods Elon had tested into their diets: wild-caught fish, fresh berries, and free-range eggs. They would also adopt his lifestyle adjustments, getting better quality sleep, practicing stress management techniques like meditation, and engaging in physical activities that promoted overall health, not just muscle growth. For the first time, Elon felt a sense of camaraderie. It wasn't just his personal experiment anymore, this was a collective journey. Together, they would see if this holistic approach could truly make a difference in the way people experienced aging. The results didn't take long to start showing. Within the first few weeks, participants began to report noticeable changes. For some, the improvements were physical. John, a 58-year-old entrepreneur who had struggled with low energy for years, felt more invigorated than he had in a long time. He started waking up earlier, feeling more rested and ready to tackle the day. His workouts felt more productive, and he no longer felt fatigued by mid-afternoon. Samantha, a retired teacher who had dealt with joint pain and stiffness, reported that her inflammation had significantly decreased. She was able to move more freely and comfortably, something she hadn't experienced in years. She also noticed that her mood had improved, and she was less irritable and more engaged in her daily activities. For others, the changes were mental. Henry, a 63-year-old former software engineer, said that his mind felt sharper. He had been struggling with cognitive fog and difficulty concentrating, but after a few weeks of following Musk's plan, he was able to focus more clearly and work for longer stretches without feeling mentally drained. The most surprising result, however, came from Maria, a 55-year-old artist who had been skeptical about the entire experiment. Maria had been dealing with a sense of emotional burnout, feeling disconnected from her creativity and struggling with stress. But after a month of following the diet and lifestyle changes, she reported feeling rejuvenated both mentally and emotionally. Her creative spark returned, and she felt more present in her life than she had in years. Elon was amazed at how quickly these results manifested. It wasn't just the physical transformations, though those were impressive, but it was the overall sense of vitality and energy that everyone was experiencing. He realized that this holistic approach was working in ways he hadn't even fully anticipated. The combination of proper nutrition, adequate rest, stress reduction, and physical activity was proving to be more powerful than any single element alone. Encouraged by the success stories from his group, Musk decided to document their progress. He shared their testimonials online, inviting others to join the movement. He showed before and after pictures of the participants, along with their stories, detailing how their lives had changed since adopting the new approach. The videos and posts went viral, with many viewers expressing interest in trying it for themselves. As the weeks passed, Musk's own results continued to improve. His muscle recovery was faster, his energy levels were higher, and his mental clarity was sharper than ever. He had fully embraced the holistic approach, and the changes were evident in his day-to-day life. He was stronger, healthier, and more focused than he had been in years. One evening, after completing a particularly intense workout, Musk stood in front of the mirror, assessing his reflection. He wasn't looking for visible muscle gains or changes in his physique, he was looking at the deeper, more subtle transformations that had taken place. His body felt leaner, stronger, and more agile, but it was the mental and emotional shifts that had truly amazed him. He felt present in his life in a way that he hadn't in a long time. He wasn't just working harder. He was working smarter, with a clearer sense of purpose and well-being. Musk had come to understand that muscle health after 50 wasn't just about physical strength, it was about maintaining balance across every facet of life. Aging didn't have to be a slow decline. It could be a time of growth and renewal, if approached with intention and care. By focusing on a holistic approach, one that included proper nutrition, sleep, stress management, and physical activity, he had been able to defy the expectations of aging and unlock a new level of vitality. With the success of his personal experiment and the real-world results from his group of followers, Elon Musk began to feel a sense of responsibility to share his findings on a larger scale. He knew that his discoveries could change the way people approached aging, particularly those over 50, who often felt like their best years were behind them. He started writing articles and giving interviews, talking about the importance of a balanced, holistic approach to health. His message resonated with many people, particularly those in the baby boomer generation who were increasingly concerned about their health and longevity. Musk's insights offered hope, a way forward for people who were tired of feeling limited by their age. As more and more individuals joined the movement, the impact began to spread. What had started as a small group of volunteers had now turned into a full-fledged community of people, all working toward better health and vitality in their later years. The success stories were pouring in, and people from all walks of life were finding renewed energy, strength, and joy in their daily routines. As Elon Musk's holistic approach to muscle health gained momentum, he was faced with a new challenge: doubts. While the results from the group he had tested were encouraging, there were still skeptics, both within the group and outside of it. Some questioned the sustainability of the changes, while others worried that the results were too good to be true. Musk knew that he had to address these doubts head-on if his movement was going to continue to grow. The most significant concerns came from those who had been following his program but hadn't seen the same quick results. While many participants were experiencing improvements, some felt frustrated with the slow pace of change. Henry, the 63-year-old former software engineer, had been struggling with cognitive fog for years. Though he was feeling better in many ways, his mental clarity had not improved as much as he had hoped. "Elon, I'm trying," Henry admitted during one of the group's video check-ins. "But I'm just not seeing the results in my mind the way I'd like. My muscles are better, I'm feeling more energetic, but the mental fog is still hanging around." Elon listened carefully, nodding thoughtfully. He understood Henry's frustration, and he knew that aging was a complex issue, one that didn't yield immediate results. The holistic approach was not a magic bullet, and the process of reversing years of wear and tear on the body and mind took time. He also realized that people had different starting points and that not everyone would experience the same pace of progress. "I understand, Henry. I think we all feel like we want instant results. But this is a long game. It's not just about changing the foods we eat, it's about changing our entire lifestyle," Elon said with a calming tone. "We have to be patient with ourselves. It might take time for your brain to catch up with the physical improvements." But even as he reassured Henry, Elon knew there was more to the situation than just patience. Doubt was creeping into the movement, and he needed to find a way to address it more effectively. If this approach was going to change lives, he had to prove that it wasn't just a temporary fix. It was a sustainable, long-term solution that could lead to lasting results, not just in muscle health but in overall wellness. Elon realized that the key to overcoming these doubts lay in deeper communication and more consistent documentation of results. He had to show that the benefits were not just physical, but also mental, emotional, and even spiritual. It was clear that his followers needed more than just sporadic updates, they needed a clearer roadmap and a deeper understanding of the science behind the approach. He reached out to experts in various fields, nutritionists, neuroscientists, and fitness professionals, to further validate his method. Musk wanted to make sure he wasn't overlooking any key factors. He spoke to Dr. Michelle Carter, a neuroscientist with years of research on aging and brain function, who shared valuable insights. "Elon, what you're doing is absolutely aligned with the latest research," Dr. Carter explained during one of their discussions. "We know that the brain and body are deeply interconnected, and changes in diet and exercise can certainly affect cognitive function. But it's also important to understand that mental clarity takes longer to improve than physical strength. Brain health is complex and requires consistent, long-term effort." Musk took Dr. Carter's advice to heart. He began to emphasize the importance of consistency, not only in the foods people were eating but also in their commitment to the full lifestyle overhaul. He encouraged his followers to document their progress regularly, making notes of their feelings, energy levels, and any small improvements they noticed. This allowed people to see the subtle changes over time and helped them stay motivated even when the results weren't immediately dramatic. Additionally, Elon emphasized the importance of community. The more people could share their experiences with each other, the less isolated they would feel in their struggles. This sense of connection was critical in keeping morale high and doubts at bay. It wasn't just about individual results, it was about building a movement of people who could support each other through the ups and downs of aging. As Elon's group continued to share their journeys, more stories began to surface, stories that highlighted the power of persistence. Maria, the artist who had once been skeptical, reported that her creativity was thriving more than ever. Her mental fog had significantly cleared, and she found herself painting with a renewed sense of purpose. Her mood was stable, and her emotional well-being was better than it had been in years. John, the 58-year-old entrepreneur, had also experienced a shift. His energy had leveled out, and he was able to focus for longer periods of time without feeling drained. He had started to feel more like himself again, reconnecting with his passion for his work. And Henry, who had felt left behind at the start, began to see more significant cognitive improvements as the months passed. His mental clarity slowly returned, and he felt more engaged in his daily life. He even started to take on new projects and challenges that he had once considered too difficult due to his cognitive decline. Elon shared these success stories with the group and online, highlighting how far they had all come despite the doubts that had initially crept in. He reminded everyone that there was no one-size-fits-all solution when it came to aging. What worked for one person might take longer for another, but the key was perseverance and consistency. As the movement gained more traction, Musk began to realize that this journey was about more than just proving his findings correct. It was about inspiring others to take control of their own health and embrace the idea that aging didn't have to be a slow decline, it could be a process of growth and vitality. He was no longer just helping himself or a small group of followers. He was helping to create a new mindset around aging, one that empowered people to take action and make changes that could significantly improve their lives. For Musk, the movement had become a way to change the conversation around aging, shifting it from a fear of decline to an opportunity for growth. He began speaking more openly about the importance of self-care, community, and intentional living, emphasizing that age was just a number. The real power lay in how people chose to live their lives, regardless of their age. And as he reflected on his journey, on the doubts, the setbacks, and the triumphs, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. This had become more than just a personal mission. It had turned into a movement that was touching the lives of thousands of people, giving them the tools to live healthier, more fulfilling lives at any stage. As Elon Musk's journey through muscle health and aging continued, the transformation wasn't just physical. It wasn't just about achieving measurable gains in muscle mass or reclaiming the energy of his younger years, it was about the deeper, emotional shifts that came with the journey. The sacrifices, the setbacks, the struggles, and, most importantly, the breakthroughs had all led to this one moment. Elon was no longer simply trying to defy aging. He was living proof that it could be done. It happened during a routine check-in with his group of followers. After months of tracking their progress, comparing their struggles, and supporting each other, the results were finally undeniable. In this moment, it wasn't just about physical gains. It was about the stories of transformation, the shared sense of accomplishment, and the deep sense of pride that resonated within every individual involved. Elon had been pushing himself to the limit, testing the boundaries of what his body could handle. His workouts were becoming more intense, but so was his recovery. He felt stronger than he had in years. His muscles were firming up, his stamina was increasing, and his mood was consistently more positive. Yet, the most powerful change had been the emotional and mental shift. The mental fog that had once clouded his thinking had cleared, and he was able to work with greater focus and clarity. But it wasn't just about his physicality. Elon realized that his body's newfound strength wasn't the most profound aspect of this transformation, it was his emotional resilience. He had faced so many moments of doubt, frustration, and pain along the way, yet he had learned to push through them, drawing strength not just from his muscles but from his mind and spirit as well. This newfound strength came to a head during a particularly tough workout. Elon had been lifting heavier weights than ever before, pushing himself to the limit. As he completed the final set, drenched in sweat and breathing heavily, he paused and looked at his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, he didn't just see a tired man in his 50s trying to defy aging, he saw a man who had learned to embrace it, to adapt, and to thrive in the process. It was more than just a physical triumph. It was an emotional and psychological victory that was worth celebrating. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from one of the members of his group, Henry. "Elon, I just hit a new personal record on my deadlift. I can't believe it. It's been years since I felt this strong. I feel like I've found a new lease on life. Thank you for helping me get here." Reading Henry's message, Elon smiled. The flood of emotion he felt at that moment was overwhelming. His purpose, his mission, was no longer just a personal one. It had grown into something far greater than himself. He had inspired change not only in his own life but in the lives of so many others who had once felt like their best days were behind them. This journey had become a movement, and it was transforming the way people viewed aging and health. Later that evening, Musk held a live stream event where he invited his followers to share their personal milestones. It was a celebration, a moment to reflect on how far they had all come. As people shared their success stories, there was a palpable sense of pride and connection in the air. Elon's followers were no longer just people trying to follow a new diet or exercise plan. They were a community, a group of people united by a shared mission, to age with strength, dignity, and vitality. One by one, the participants spoke about the progress they had made. Maria, the artist, shared that she had not only regained her creativity but had started teaching art classes again. She talked about how her mental clarity and mood had improved, leading to a more joyful approach to her work and her life. John, the entrepreneur, shared how he had reclaimed his energy, felt more present with his family, and had even started taking up new business ventures that he had previously felt too tired or unmotivated to pursue. Samantha, the retired teacher, talked about how her joint pain had diminished and how she could now take long walks with her grandchildren without feeling any discomfort. Her pride in her physical recovery was matched only by the joy of being able to keep up with her active family. Elon listened intently, his heart swelling with pride. These were not just people following his program, they were people whose lives had been fundamentally changed by their commitment to healthier aging. It was no longer just about muscle health, it was about overall well-being, both physical and emotional. As the event drew to a close, Musk addressed the group directly. "This is just the beginning," Elon said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "You've all proven that age is not a barrier to strength. It's not a barrier to living our best lives. What we've accomplished together is more than just about looking good or being fit. It's about reclaiming our vitality, our sense of purpose, and our future." Elon paused for a moment, looking at the faces of the people who had joined him on this journey. "We've changed the way we think about aging. We've created a movement, and together, we'll continue to inspire others to do the same. Our strength isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual. And that's something that no one can take away from us." As the weeks passed, the momentum continued to grow. Elon's message began to spread beyond the initial group of followers. More and more people, especially those over 50, were adopting his approach, trying the foods, implementing the lifestyle changes, and experiencing life-changing results. The community of people who had embraced this new way of living began to expand, creating a ripple effect that was touching lives all over the world. In the media, Musk was being recognized for not just his innovations in technology and space, but for his pioneering approach to health and wellness. Articles and documentaries were being made about his journey, and people from all walks of life were sharing their stories of transformation. What had started as an experiment to regain his muscle health had turned into a global movement, one that was changing the way the world viewed aging. For Elon, the emotional climax of his journey wasn't just about achieving a personal physical goal, it was about creating a lasting impact. He had helped people reclaim their vitality and their sense of self, proving that aging didn't have to be a process of decline. It could be a time of growth, of vitality, and of purpose. His legacy wasn't just about technology or innovation. It was about human resilience and the power to transform our lives, no matter our age. And with that, Elon Musk knew that his mission was far from over. The journey had just begun. Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, staring out of the window at the sprawling view of the city below. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the horizon, but it wasn't the breathtaking sight that had his attention. It was the journey that had started with a simple desire to regain his own health, and had evolved into something far bigger than he had ever imagined. He had always prided himself on being a pioneer in the fields of space and technology, but this journey into health and aging was something more personal, something more meaningful. Over the past year, he had watched as his body transformed. The changes were undeniable, his muscle tone had improved, his energy levels were consistently higher, and his mental clarity had returned with a sharpness he hadn't felt in years. But as satisfying as these results were, they were no longer the primary focus of his journey. He had learned that true strength was not just about how much weight he could lift or how fast he could recover. True strength came from the ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow at every stage of life. As the movement continued to grow, so did his understanding of the deeper connection between mind, body, and spirit. This holistic approach to aging wasn't just about muscle health or weight loss. It was about embracing the full spectrum of wellness, mental, emotional, and physical. It was about adopting a mindset that viewed aging not as a decline but as an opportunity for renewal. Looking at the progress of those who had joined his movement, Elon felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He saw the changes in their lives, not just in their muscles, but in their energy, their happiness, and their confidence. People who had once resigned themselves to the idea that aging meant inevitable decline were now living proof that it didn't have to be that way. This wasn't just about changing diets or exercise routines, this was about changing the narrative around aging itself. Elon knew that this journey had the potential to inspire millions. The world needed to hear the message that age didn't have to define you, that taking control of your health and your life could happen at any stage, and it was never too late to begin. The diets, the foods, the workouts, they were important, but the real message was that anyone, regardless of age, could make significant changes to their health. But there was more to it. There was a deeper lesson, one that went beyond physical strength. It was about resilience, the resilience to keep going, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain. It was about the willingness to adapt to life's challenges and find ways to thrive, no matter what obstacles came your way. At the heart of this movement was a commitment to lifelong learning and growth. Elon realized that this journey was not just for people over 50, it was for everyone. Everyone could benefit from understanding that aging could be approached with purpose, with care, and with an openness to change. It was about creating a culture where wellness and vitality were celebrated at every age, and where people were encouraged to take action now, not waiting until a certain milestone or age, but acting in the present to create a better future. In many ways, this had been Elon's own journey as well. As a man who had always challenged the status quo, who had worked tirelessly to advance technology and space exploration, he found that his approach to aging was no different. He didn't just accept the conventional narrative about aging. He challenged it, sought new possibilities, and pursued those possibilities relentlessly. Reflecting on the changes within himself, Elon found that his physical improvements were only the surface. The real transformation had occurred within. He had learned to slow down, to listen to his body, to give it what it needed, and to not rush the process. The stress of his busy schedule had been replaced with a more balanced approach to work, rest, and play. Mentally, he felt sharper. He had rediscovered a sense of clarity and purpose that he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about solving problems or innovating new technologies, it was about living life with intention, and making decisions that aligned with his newfound understanding of health and well-being. There was a joy in small moments now, whether it was a walk in the park or a meal shared with friends, that hadn't been there before. Elon's relationships with others had also evolved. He was more present with the people he cared about, and he noticed that his conversations were more meaningful. He had more energy to connect with his family, friends, and colleagues, and he felt more attuned to their needs. His approach to leadership had shifted as well. He was less focused on the end result and more focused on the process, on supporting those around him, and on building a community that embraced shared values of health, resilience, and personal growth. As the leader of this movement, Elon had become more than just a figurehead. He had become a mentor, a guide, and a friend to those on the journey with him. His own personal transformation had mirrored that of so many of his followers, and in many ways, their success had become his own. The sense of community that had blossomed throughout the year was something he had never expected, but it had become the most rewarding aspect of all. Looking ahead, Elon saw the potential for even more growth. He wasn't done. There was so much more to explore, more questions to ask, and more lives to impact. The concept of muscle health was just the beginning. He had discovered that the deeper message was one of empowerment, of giving people the tools to reclaim their health and, by extension, their lives. Elon knew that his work in this area was far from over. He was just getting started. There were plans for research, collaborations with top experts in aging, and the development of new tools to help people optimize their health. The next phase of the movement would focus on scaling the message to reach more people, sharing stories of success, and continuing to refine the approach to make it accessible to everyone, no matter where they started from. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of reflection, a moment to savor the changes he had already seen. The journey had been tough, but it had been worth it. The impact was undeniable. Aging didn't have to be feared, it could be embraced. And with the right mindset and the right tools, anyone could take control of their future. Elon Musk stood in front of a crowd of his supporters, speaking at the final public event to celebrate the success of the movement. He had come a long way from the skeptical days of his initial experiments, and so had they. The journey was a collective one, and it had reshaped the lives of thousands of people. "What we've achieved here is remarkable," he said, his voice filled with gratitude and pride. "We've created something that not only impacts our muscles, our strength, but our minds and hearts as well. Together, we've proven that aging doesn't have to mean slowing down or giving up. It's just another chapter in a lifelong adventure of growth, health, and resilience. And as long as we keep pushing forward, we'll continue to see the incredible possibilities that exist." The crowd erupted in applause. It wasn't just about the applause, though. It was about the shared commitment to living fully, no matter the age. The movement wasn't over. It was just beginning. And with that, Elon Musk knew that he had started something that would continue to change lives, for the better, for generations to come. As Elon Musk's journey continued, the movement he had started took on a life of its own. What began as a personal experiment with muscle health and aging had blossomed into a global network of individuals over 50 who were taking their health into their own hands. It was no longer just Elon pushing the boundaries, others were stepping up, sharing their own stories, and inspiring one another. The first signs of this growing community appeared in the form of social media posts. People from around the world began posting about their experiences with the foods and practices that Elon had introduced. They shared pictures of their meals, documented their workout routines, and described the positive changes they were experiencing. The hashtag #MuskMuscle movement trended for weeks as more people embraced the idea that it wasn't too late to take control of their health. Elon had always been a visionary, but this was different. He had always been at the forefront of technological revolutions, but what he was witnessing now felt even more significant. People weren't just following a trend or mimicking someone else's routine, they were truly transforming their lives, empowered by the simple idea that they could make a difference in their own aging process. They were taking ownership of their bodies and their futures. As word spread, so did the impact. In cities across the globe, from New York to Tokyo, from London to Cape Town, people were gathering in local parks for group workouts, swapping recipes, and sharing their triumphs and struggles with one another. The idea of a community focused on health and well-being for those over 50 was something that hadn't been seen on such a large scale before. And Elon was at the center of it all, but he wasn't alone. His colleagues, friends, and experts he had brought into the fold were also playing pivotal roles. They hosted online webinars, wrote blog posts, and even created online courses to guide others on their own health journeys. Elon himself participated in many of these discussions, but instead of being the sole leader, he became part of a larger network of advocates. He encouraged others to speak up, to share their stories, and to offer support. It wasn't just his journey anymore, it was everyone's journey. One of the most heartening developments was the creation of local support groups. These groups, which started as small gatherings, quickly grew into larger communities. They provided a space for people to talk openly about their challenges and celebrate their successes. In these groups, the exchange of knowledge, encouragement, and advice became a vital part of the process. People who had once felt isolated by the realities of aging now felt a deep sense of connection. Elon was often moved by the stories he heard. One woman in her early 60s from Australia had started the program after struggling with chronic pain and stiffness in her joints. After just a few months of incorporating the muscle-boosting foods and routines, she reported a significant reduction in pain and an improvement in her mobility. "I never thought I'd feel like this again," she wrote in one of her posts. "I feel stronger, more alive, and full of energy. Thank you, Elon, for showing me that there's always room to grow." Another man, in his late 50s, posted a video about how he had been able to lower his blood pressure and reduce his dependence on medication through the dietary changes and exercise recommendations. "It's amazing what a few simple changes can do," he said. "I feel more in control of my health than I have in years." Elon watched these stories unfold with pride. He realized that, in a way, this movement was creating a ripple effect of empowerment. One person's transformation led to another's, and before long, a large-scale cultural shift was underway. Aging no longer had to be feared, it could be embraced, celebrated, and approached with vigor. To further spread the word, Elon began incorporating this message into his public speeches. He had spoken at countless technology and business conferences throughout his career, but now he used these platforms to talk about aging and health. In his talks, he emphasized the importance of not allowing age to define one's potential. He spoke passionately about the power of small, consistent changes and the impact they could have on overall well-being. Elon's work with his companies had always been about pushing boundaries, and he continued to do so in this new space of health and aging. He brought together a team of nutritionists, doctors, and fitness experts to expand the research behind the muscle health foods. They began studying the long-term effects of these dietary changes, collecting data, and sharing it with the world. His personal commitment to the cause inspired others to dive into the science behind it, and soon new studies began popping up supporting the ideas he had introduced. Social media played a huge role in the movement's success. It allowed people to share their journeys, ask questions, and receive encouragement from people they had never met. Elon had always been a pioneer in utilizing the power of the internet to spread ideas, and now it was no different. He had long recognized the power of social platforms, but he was amazed by the way they had connected people who had once felt disconnected from the world around them. The hashtag Musk Muscle Movement community continued to grow, reaching people from all walks of life. Each post, each video, each message was a small victory in its own right, a testament to the fact that, no matter how old you were, you could still make a change. The success stories came pouring in. A retired teacher in the Midwest found her energy levels higher than ever after committing to the new lifestyle. A former business executive in Florida shed weight and felt more vibrant than he had in years. A couple in their late 50s from Texas began cooking meals together, incorporating the muscle-boosting foods, and found their bond growing stronger as their health improved. What was truly remarkable was how these transformations were not just physical. People reported better sleep, more positive moods, and increased mental clarity. Relationships deepened, and communities flourished as people began to realize that their journey toward health didn't just impact them, it impacted everyone around them. As Elon sat in his office, reflecting on the movement's impact, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. What had started as a personal experiment had grown into something far bigger. It was a revolution, not in technology or business, but in the way people thought about aging. And this was just the beginning. Elon's vision for the future was clear. He wanted to continue expanding the movement, reaching more people, and ensuring that aging wasn't seen as a decline, but as an opportunity for growth. He wasn't finished yet, there was still so much to be done. With the community now at his side, he knew that the world was changing. Together, They were proving that strength, vitality, and health weren't just for the young, they were for everyone, no matter their age. As Elon Musk and the global community of followers continued their journey toward better muscle health, something unexpected began to happen. While the focus of the movement had always been on improving muscle strength, energy, and vitality for individuals over 50, many participants began to notice a host of other benefits that were equally as transformative, benefits that went far beyond physical strength. At first, the positive physical changes were expected. People were feeling stronger, less fatigued, and more energetic. They were noticing that their muscles were not only regenerating but were becoming more defined, their flexibility improved, and their joints felt less stiff. These were the anticipated results, and they were, of course, incredibly encouraging. But then came the surprises. For Elon, the first unexpected benefit was a sense of mental clarity. Having focused so much on the physical side of his health journey, he had never fully anticipated the impact these dietary changes would have on his cognitive function. The new diet had included foods that supported not just muscle health, but also brain health. Healthy fats from sources like avocados, omega-3 fatty acids from fish, and antioxidants from vegetables were all part of the regimen. Over time, Elon began to notice that he was able to focus for longer periods, his thoughts felt sharper, and his decision-making became clearer. It wasn't just Elon who experienced this shift. Others began sharing similar stories. One woman, who had struggled with brain fog for years, reported that she no longer felt mentally sluggish. "It's like a fog lifted," she said. "I feel sharper, more engaged, and more present in my work and my relationships. It's incredible." People who had once struggled to find motivation to get out of bed in the morning now found themselves waking up energized and eager to face the day. The effects on the mind were just as profound as the benefits on the body, and the community quickly realized that muscle health wasn't just about muscle, it was about the whole person, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Another unexpected outcome of the lifestyle changes was an improvement in mood. The foods Musk had chosen were not just muscle builders, they were mood enhancers, too. Many of the nutrients found in the 3 key foods Musk had identified, leafy greens, fatty fish, and nuts, were also linked to improved mood regulation, reducing feelings of anxiety and depression. One woman, a teacher in her 60s, described how her mood had lifted as she adhered to the new diet. "I was always dealing with stress and anxiety, especially in my later years," she explained in a social media post. "But now, I feel more at peace. My anxiety has decreased, and I'm able to handle stress much better. I never expected that eating better could help with my mental health, but it has." Elon was struck by the magnitude of this realization. The combination of physical health and emotional well-being had created a positive feedback loop. People felt better physically, which in turn, made them feel more emotionally stable. Their confidence and optimism soared, and that shift in mindset encouraged even more positive changes in their lives. It wasn't just the individuals who were benefiting from the changes. Couples, families, and friends who had begun the journey together were finding their relationships strengthened in unexpected ways. A couple in their mid-60s, who had been married for over 40 years, shared their story on social media. "We've always had a good marriage, but the past few years have been tough," they wrote. "Health problems and the usual stresses of getting older put a strain on our relationship. Since we started this new approach to muscle health, though, things have changed. We've become closer again. We cook together, we walk together, and we talk more. It's like we've rediscovered a part of ourselves that we lost." For Elon, this story resonated deeply. The connections people were forming, not just with their own health, but with others in their lives, were a powerful reminder of why he had started this journey in the first place. It wasn't just about the muscles, it was about enhancing the quality of life. And strengthening relationships, whether romantic, familial, or even friendships, played a crucial role in that process. Another benefit that was starting to emerge was a newfound emotional resilience. Many of the participants in the movement spoke about how the mental and physical transformations had made them feel more resilient in the face of life's challenges. As they grew stronger physically, they also grew stronger emotionally. They were better equipped to handle setbacks, obstacles, and difficulties, whether in their personal lives, careers, or health journeys. Elon saw this resilience firsthand. He received messages from people who had weathered difficult circumstances with newfound strength. One individual shared that they had been dealing with the loss of a loved one, and while grief was still present, they found themselves able to cope better than before. "The emotional resilience I've gained through this journey has been remarkable," they wrote. "I'm not saying I don't have hard days, but I now have the strength to face them head-on. I feel like I've grown not just physically but emotionally, and that has been a huge gift." The emotional resilience was, in many ways, just as important as the physical strength people were gaining. It was a reminder that health is not merely the absence of illness, it is about the capacity to adapt, thrive, and overcome. As the weeks passed and the results continued to pour in, it became clear that the benefits of this lifestyle change were far more holistic than anyone had initially realized. The core message, that it was possible to enhance muscle health, energy, and vitality over 50, was still at the heart of the movement. But the ripple effects were becoming more profound. The connection between physical health, mental clarity, emotional stability, and improved relationships was undeniable. And it was this holistic approach that resonated deeply with people around the world. Aging, it seemed, didn't have to mean decline. With the right tools, diet, and mindset, it could mean growth, vitality, and even reinvention. For Elon Musk, these unexpected benefits were a revelation. As someone who had spent much of his life focused on innovation and technological advancements, he had never anticipated the personal, human element that would come from this journey. He had been thinking about muscle health in terms of science and data, but the transformation he witnessed in others, and in himself, was far more profound than he had imagined. The holistic nature of the changes was a reminder that aging didn't have to be viewed as a narrowing of possibilities. It was, in fact, an opportunity to explore new areas of growth, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And now, as the movement expanded, Elon saw that the future of aging could be brighter than anyone had expected. As the months went by, the global community continued to grow, with more and more people embracing the lifestyle that had changed so many lives. The unexpected benefits, mental clarity, emotional resilience, and strengthened relationships, became just as integral to the movement as the focus on muscle health. For Elon, this chapter of his life was just beginning. He had always been one to push boundaries, but now he was pushing the boundaries of aging itself. And as more and more people joined the movement, he knew that the impact would continue to grow, changing not just how people viewed aging, but how they lived it. The muscle health movement had become more than just a revolution in fitness. It had become a movement for holistic health and a reminder that life, at any age, could still be full of possibility. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?